Hi, well, I am back live today. It's 12 o'clock on a Thursday, and I am being joined by my dear friend, Wendy Kramer, and she's also works at the Renfrew Center, and we are work colleagues as well as really good friends. So the reason why she's joining, though, is she had us over for dinner the other night, and she served this amazing meal. And we're gonna make two of those recipes. Part one is what we're gonna do today, which is a roasted carrot dip. Part two is gonna be the entree. So stay tuned for that. That's coming later in July. So today we're doing the roasted carrot dip, and we're gonna have Wendy's gonna talk us through it as well because this is her recipe. I made a few modifications just to change it up a little bit based on even my flavor preferences, which is what we're always talking about. You guys can certainly substitute and add things as well. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Ready? Okay. All right, so I'm gonna let Wendy talk a little bit about this. There are two things that I did do ahead of time. So if you're gonna make this carrot dip, two things that you're going to do. One is to toast almonds and to roast the carrot. So Wendy, so I went ahead and did that. So tell us a little bit about how and why we do this.
Okay, Judy, it's super easy. And it's something you can do in advance. Like you can make the roasted carrots, which take about an hour. And I know that sounds like a lot, but you can walk away from it, come back in an hour, do your work, do whatever, and they'll be ready to go. The most important part is to make them somewhat even. And that's not always easy because sometimes carrots come in different shapes. But whatever you do, you want to cut them in semi-equal-ish. No big deal. You don't have to measure it. But
so
they'll cook better.
I have them, yeah. Some are bigger, some are smaller, but that's okay.
It's all good.
The whole point is to just roast them, right? To bring out their sweetness and smokiness.
Give them a nice char.
And to soften them.
That's right. So that they'll be really easy to work with, because if you try to work with raw carrots in this, it'll be a little too crunchy.
Too crunchy.
This gives it more flavor. And you can also use parchment paper under, so you have no mess.
No mess.
But we're going to use this again, so we'll
so I didn't use the parchment, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. So great. So you're going to want to do those carrots ahead of time. You can do them the day before. And we toasted almonds. So it's a half a cup of almonds so the easy part again, remember, is we're always trying to do a lot with either one sheet tray, or if we have the oven on, other things that we can do while the oven's on. So we had to turn the oven on to roast the carrots. So why not throw the almonds and nuts
at the same time
on the sheet tray and do it in for 10 minutes, and you have nice toasted almonds. These are just ways to, when you're working with recipes that have few ingredients, you're trying to get the most out of every ingredient and the most flavor. So so this was done ahead, but you can do this a day in advance. You can do it just,
just a few minutes when you're roasting.
Yeah, just a few minutes. Yeah. And could you use other nuts as well?
You could absolutely sub walnuts, pistachios, whatever you like, whatever you prefer.
Whatever you have, right? So
maybe even pine nuts, whatever.
Yeah,
although they're expensive.
Yeah, so whatever you have is fine. But the recipe originally called for almonds with the skin on, but not salted. Okay,
yeah, not salted. Good
not salted. So we have those two things done. So I'm going to move my Cuisinart over, because what's great about this recipe is that it's not only few ingredients, but it's all done in the food processor. So it's fantastic.
In a matter of minutes.
In a matter of minutes.
You have everything prepared in advance.
All right. So you had a great tip about the garlic. So there's 2 garlic cloves, pretty decent sized garlic cloves that are going in. And tell us that little trick.
Instead of using a garlic press, when I'm doing a dip, and it calls for garlic, I will put my garlic in before I put any other ingredients in, instead of adding them all together. The food processor does all the work, then I don't have to do anything. I just take the paper skin off the garlic, throw it in the food processor, give it a little whirl, and it's going to be really even little pieces, because nothing worse than biting into something like a dip or a hummus when there's chunks of garlic. I don't like that at all. So this will distribute it.
Yeah. So we're gonna just whirl this in here so that we can get this garlic kind of chopped up ahead of time.
Yeah.
And bring it in, and
that's perfect.
Yeah. And it just saves you, because again, we're always about few ingredients, the most flavor, obviously health, and less cleanup.
Yeah.
So if you don't have to use your garlic press or your zester or whatever, you're already going to get this dirty. So let's just do it all in one. Okay. So we have our garlic in. Next thing goes what? Do we add?
I think
Carrots,
you can
right?
add the carrots.
Yeah,
and
let's
then
go
we'll
ahead.
just add all the other ingredients.
All right, so my hands are clean, so I'm going to go ahead and
We washed our hands.
we washed our hands beforehand, so we promised we. All right, so these are going in, and I did use. The recipe called for like a half a cup of oil plus 2 tablespoons, just to make it easier. I think a half a cup of oil is fine. I just took 2 tablespoons out of the half a cup of oil that we were going to use, and then used that to roast the carrots. All right, so.
And honestly, you could use less. I don't even think I measure it anymore.
Yeah, I think you could probably get
just
away
want
with
it
less.
coated.
Yep. Let me
So
find
they
my
don't burn.
Yep. All right. So we have the carrots in, right? So what's our next thing that goes in? So we just everything just kind of goes in all at once, right?
Yes, everything goes in
Yeah,
at once.
because it's super easy. We already have the garlic in. So the almonds are already measured. So that this is a half a cup. So they go in.
And it's so important to have all your ingredients ready and measured before you start a process like this, so it goes faster. So you're not trying to find things at the last minute.
Right.
The French have a word.
Mise en place, right?
Yep.
So Wendy was mentioning that earlier, and I thought that's a great thing to mention to you guys, because when I'm cooking and doing these Facebook Lives, I feel like a lot of times I do have all my ingredients out, and you might be thinking that I'm doing that just because I'm doing Facebook Live. It does certainly help, but I do that all the time. I always get the ingredients out. It just makes cooking faster and much more efficient. So always think about that, because that'll save you some time. All right. The one thing that I did do is I did change the amount of sodium in the original recipe. It called for about 2.5 teaspoons of salt, which I know a lot of you are being, careful with the amount of sodium you're ingesting. So I did cut it down to 1 teaspoon total. And again, this is a dip, so it's not like you're eating, half a cup at a time. But if you want it to be a little bit saltier, you can. I felt for my flavor preference, 1 teaspoon was plenty to use throughout the whole thing. I put a little bit on I think it was like a half a teaspoon on the carrots, and now I'm just going to put a half a teaspoon in here.
And I always find too, adding the pepper, for me, I prefer less salt, more pepper,
Me
because
too.
I like spicy stuff.
Me too. I agree.
Use your preference.
I agree.
Yeah.
Ground fresh black pepper, again, up to maybe a teaspoon. I don't really measure this either, but just get it in there.
And always when you're done a recipe, taste it a little bit with a clean spoon, obviously, and don't put it back in there.
Yeah.
And that's when you decide if you need a little bit more of something.
That great point.
Trust your instinct with
Yeah,
that.
absolutely, yeah. So taste it along the way and add more or less. Taste it at the end, so you'll know. All right, so we have the pepper, we have the salt, we have the carrots, we have the garlic, we have the almonds. Now we need a half a cup of, which is probably about, well, I have my half cup, so I'll just measure for you guys. We did drain these, so it's about a half a cup of the garbanzo beans, chickpeas.
And honestly, they are nutritious. They are great. It's much easier to use them from the can. They're just as good as when you make actual chickpeas, which you soak overnight. It's a whole thing and a thing. They're great, but I don't think it's worth the time for this recipe.
Yeah, for this recipe, canned are great.
Yeah.
I drained them and did rinse them. We have the extra juice, the extra liquid from the can of chickpeas. I have it aside because I was telling to Wendy that this dip is a thicker dip, and that's great, and that's what makes it so delicious. But if you want it to be a little bit thinner, you could just add a little bit of the chickpea liquid that's from the can to help thin it a little bit if you want that. I don't know that we're going to use it. I have it set aside. So your tip was,
I never throw anything out.
since we didn't use all of this, right? And these don't go back in your refrigerator to die. We want to use them, right? So we already have a dirty sheet pan, right?
So you would just, I like to put a little bit of olive oil, just a little drizzle.
So we'll just do a tiny bit.
Yeah, and then salt and pepper.
Yep.
So I tend to use kosher salt.
Sorry about that.
No,
Yeah.
that's all right.
I think I have Diamond Crystal. So Diamond Crystal,
that's the best.
That's kosher, right?
That's
the one that I always use. I think a lot of recipes are based on that.
And it really seems to
little jammed. All right, I'll check that later.
And then you just throw that in the oven, maybe whatever it was on, or maybe 400 degrees for maybe 10-15 minutes. Another alternative, if you don't want to use the oven, is take a saute pan, do the same exact thing, a little bit of olive oil, salt and pepper, and they'll just like medium heat, smush them around a little, that's a very technical term, and they'll start popping, and they'll get a nice brown edge, maybe 10 minutes max.
Perfect.
There's no perfect rule.
Nope.
But they're crunchy, they're delicious, they're great snacks.
Yeah, they're great as a
you
snack.
You can add them to salad.
You can top the dip with them as a little crunchy topping.
Just a little garnish, it's lovely.
And again, if thinking about this, what Wendy just mentioned. So if you're roasting your carrots and you are toasting your almonds in the oven, right before you're ready to make the dip, so you already have your oven on, right? So then now you can toast your chickpeas, whether it's 350 or 400, that's fine.
And you know, you could, but you could, if you measure out your half cup that you need, while you're roasting the carrots and the almonds, you could just throw in,
that's
if you
true.
have 3 layers.
Yeah.
Same thing.
You could do
same
it all at
heat,
the same time, so which is great. But as she mentioned, if you did happen to roast your carrots and toasted the almonds the day in advance, then don't turn your oven on just to do those little bit of chickpeas. Just do it in a pan.
Yep.
Yeah. So, all right. So we have the chickpeas. What do we have left? We have the lemon. All right. So we have a lemon, and I'm going to move this to the side because the lemon, we were always talking about, using everything you can, right? So the original recipe did not call for the zest of the lemon, but it just called for the juice. But we want the lemony flavor. So always zest your lemon so that you can use the zest whenever there's anything that you're using that's calling for lemon juice. It's just going to amp up the lemon flavor. So it's a great way to use more of the fruit, and not to waste it. And like Wendy had said, if it looks like this and you're not going to necessarily need a whole lemon, just put this back in your refrigerator and then use the lemon later. It's fine if it doesn't have the zest on it. It's perfectly fine. All right, so I'm going to cut this lemon in half, and I do have a little citrus juicer. Sometimes I'll just do this by hand and catch the seeds, and again, not one less thing to clean, but it calls for 3 tablespoons, and I was just curious to see, does 1 lemon give us 3 tablespoons? And this has this little cup that catches the juice at the bottom it's measured by 1, 2, 3 tablespoons. So and the other thing is when you use these citrus presses, you really do get more of the juice out. When you do it by hand,
it's harder.
It's harder, right?
But you can do it. You don't need a special gadget at all.
And you were just saying too that the tip for getting the most juice out of the lemon is what?
Well, if I refrigerate the lemons in advance, I take them out if I know I'm going to use them so that they're room temp, and then you just roll it before you squeeze, and it tends to loosen up somehow the juice comes out.
Yeah, it does. It kind of breaks the membranes, I think, a little bit, and then the juice comes out. All right.
You can always add more lemon juice if you'd like.
So this is 2 tablespoons. So that was a smaller lemon.
So we'll do maybe a half.
Yeah, we can do another half.
And you never know. Sometimes the fruit, you'll get a lot out of it. Sometimes you may need a few more.
And I think a little bit extra lemon juice is always good. Yep. And at the end, when you taste it, you might even want to add more. Right. All right. So
but I love your idea of putting the zest in because that gives it an extra pop.
Yep, an extra flavor, right? Why not? We have it. Now, I didn't zest this extra lemon, but all right. So this one looks like we've got now 3 tablespoons. So I'm going to take this off, put it in the sink, and then this will go in with our zest. All right. And what are we missing?
Spices.
All right. So the original recipe, basically the seasonings are salt, pepper, and the original recipe was called a smoky carrot dip, and it used smoked paprika as the spice. Now, I'm not a fan of smoked flavors, and so I don't have smoked paprika in my pantry.
Although you did like it when
But I did love it when you made it, because it does just have this like earthy, it wasn't real smoky.
Not smoky. I don't like smoky.
No, it doesn't really have a smoky flavor. So
it's got a nice spice.
And so it was kind of misnamed. It's not really a smoke. So I changed it to a roasted carrot dip. But because I don't have smoked paprika, and I didn't want to go buy it because I wouldn't really use it very much, I do have sumac. And sumac we used in a couple of other videos. And it's very lemony and earthy, and I thought it would work beautifully in this. So I'm going to add about a teaspoon of sumac. If you don't have sumac, or if you don't have smoked paprika, what would be another, what could you do?
You could certainly use regular paprika if you have it. We're also going to add cumin, right?
Oh, it didn't call for cumin, so I didn't use.
You could use a little cumin instead if you'd like. I love cumin, so I usually throw cumin in many things.
That would be delicious.
Yeah, so you can experiment and figure out what you like. If you want to spice it up, use a little more cayenne.
Great. So a lot of different options. So again, if you don't have a spice, don't run out and get it if you can use what you have. All right, so I don't have the recipe here as far as the people. Are we putting the oil in now, or do we put the oil in later?
I would let it go
Let
a
this
little,
go
and then
a little
you
bit.
can add the oil.
And then we'll add the
food
herbs.
press. Yeah.
Okay, so, and Wendy is an avid gardener and obviously very passionate about cooking, and she's a fabulous cook. She grows herbs as well in her garden. I was out in my husband's garden this morning, grabbed some parsley, and I grabbed some mint as well. So we're gonna do both in this. We have a combination of parsley and mint, but you could do other herbs.
Yeah,
right?
you could probably add cilantro or anything you like.
All right, so let me move this back over a little bit before we add the oil and the herbs. So we are going to process this a little bit for you. Oh, wow. Just the almonds. Yeah, we're gonna think, what's so loud in there? They're very noisy. They like to make a ruckus, right?
They want you to know they're there.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right, so you can see we've got quite a nice little, and it smells so good already, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I don't know, I'll take this off just so, you know what, I'm not, because then I have the blade in there and you take it off, sometimes it's hard to get it back on. All right, so that's how it's looking. It's a little chunky. We're going to smooth it down. So now, do you think we can oil?
I would do the herbs,
All right.
and then give that a little.
All right, little shushing.
Yeah.
All right.
And then we'll put the oil in.
And you don't have to pre-chop your herbs,
No.
and you can use the stems. This parsley, though, is really, the stems are, some of these stems are a little bit woody, so I'm not going to add all the parsley. But it's about a half a cup of mixed herbs. And remember, I always say when you're cooking with herbs, you can never add too many.
Absolutely. And you can always save some for garnish,
yes,
too. On
which
the top,
we'll want to do.
nice.
Yeah, we can chop some up
For
later.
presentation. Yeah.
All right, so there we go. So we got the herbs in.
Give that a whirl.
Give this a whirl.
And then we'll add And sometimes it's when there's that much stuff in there.
You're going to have to, you might have to get down in there and help it out a little bit. Now, I haven't made this enough to try, but I know you've made this quite a bit. Have you ever done it in a blender, or is this something that really probably needs a food processor?
I like the food processor because, quite frankly, the blender, the blade, I feel like I lose a lot of stuff under the blade.
Yes.
Meaning when I go to take it out of the blender, you can't get
hard.
Little
yes, it's
thing.
hard. So if you, hopefully you have a food processor, because
blenders a great option.
You could try it and see. Ideally, the food processor really pulls everything in. Yes, it makes it a lot
I'm
easier.
going to start adding the oil.
Okay, so we're going to add the oil through the feed too.
Yep. Super easy
All right,
while it's
super
running.
easy. Just put it in almost as if you're making pesto.
Yes.
It's a similar process.
Another wonderful thing.
And yes, absolutely.
Versatile.
So we've got our oil going in. This is a little there. Now the oil's helping it kind of pull it together. Like I said, if we wanted to make it even thinner, we could add a little bit of the garbanzo liquid. But I think that's looking really good.
Yeah, and you can decide how chunky or how not chunky.
So do you go further than that? That's about what I
like
stop.
it like that.
All right, so let's stop here.
You could make it if you wanted it more like a sauce that you'd want to put on something.
You could make this even thinner and like smoother.
Yeah.
Right. So you could thin this with, like I said, we said a little bit of the garbanzo liquid from the can. Or you could keep it like this. I like it actually like this.
And it's really good when you're serving it as an appetizer with like crudité. You'll cut up veggies or crackers or whatever. It really holds it firm, and it's not going to be messy or drippy.
It's not going to be messy.
Yeah. And the color's beautiful, I think.
And we were saying, from a nutritional standpoint, this has 2 pounds of carrots. 2 pounds of carrots. So that's a lot of beta-carotene. And I know we all kind of get stuck on hummus as like the dip of choice, right? Mm-hmm. This is going to be your new favorite. I'm guaranteeing you. This is an unbelievably rich, flavorful dip that you will want to make this all the time.
And even if you don't eat raw carrots, which I do, I love carrots, they're my favorite, but like my husband will not eat a raw carrot, but he loves this dip.
That's amazing. That's a good point, because it's a great use of carrots. And it also, we were talking about, when I work with my clients, we're always talking about creating like the best balance, nutrient balance when you're creating a meal. And this dip has an incredible nutrient balance, because we're getting the healthy fat from the olives and the nuts. We're getting
the almonds.
The olive oil and the almonds are a really good healthy fat source. And then we have our protein from the nuts and the beans. We have high fiber from the beans and the carrots. So and then flavor from everything else. So it is just
fresh herbs and the
fresh
spices.
herbs. So we'll
it's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win. So we'll just finish this off with maybe a little drizzle if you want to, a little drizzle of olive oil, right? So a little bit on top.
Nice finish.
Nice finish, and we'll do. Since we have the parsley and we already have the parsley and the mint.
Smells great. That's a great idea.
The mint, yeah, that's a nice little addition, right?
Yeah.
And then if you wanted to, you could add a little more lemon juice. It's all taste, to taste.
You could even use some lemon zest on top.
Yeah, if we had some left over, you can keep going.
And if you roast the chickpeas,
yeah, the roasted chickpeas would be gorgeous.
So much you can do, and that's
so
the fun
much
part
you
about
can
cooking.
do. So here's the roasted dip. Now the one thing we were talking about, I didn't even put it all in there. It makes a lot.
Huge.
So so you can serve a crowd, and we were just trying to come up with easy, healthy, but absolutely delicious things that you can make that also, you can serve when you're entertaining over the summer and you want it to be casual and
you can make it in advance.
Yes.
And this will stay in the fridge for at least a week. I've had it
a week in the fridge. Perfect. And we were just saying, there's no reason, we can't think of any, we haven't frozen it, but we cannot think of a reason why you couldn't. So if you're thinking you're making a little too much, you can always just freeze it and then you can have it later. I was telling Wendy that the way I like to have it is that I use it as a pita. I had a whole wheat pita bread, toasted it, and I use this as my sandwich filling, right? So I put some extra herbs in there. I put some extra like fresh grated carrots, and I had some lettuce, and I just made this great little pita pocket. But this, instead of hummus, like this became the sandwich filling. All right. So anything else that we wanted to add to this, Wendy?
I think you did a fabulous job.
No,
it looks delicious.
Thank you. It was so sweet to have her to come join me, and we had so much. We had so much fun when we were at dinner, and I was like, oh my gosh, the 2 recipes that she made were so delicious and so wonderful for summer, easy summer entertaining. I was like, you have to join me, and we'll do these together. So this is part 1. We have the carrot dip, right? And then part 2 will be in July, is when we're going to make the entree, which was like it was a grilled shrimp and veggie platter
over Israeli couscous.
Yeah, like the pearl
and
couscous.
You can make everything in advance and serve it at room temperature. It's perfect entertainment.
That's what I loved about it, is that you can make it all in advance and serve it at room temperature.
And it looks beautiful, and you can sub out
gorgeous.
things if you
it looks amazing. It tastes amazing. And you can have it all done so you can be enjoying your guests.
You can have a crowd and feed everybody with it.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much. Thanks, Wendy, for joining. I so appreciate it. And again, we will see you. I don't think I'm back next week. We're getting into the 4th of July week, so I think I'm going to be away for a little bit. But then we'll be coming back in July. We'll do part 2 of this. Wendy's is kind enough to come back. She's going to join us again for part 2. Again, Judy Matusky with Athens Nutrition. Always reach out with any nutrition questions or concerns you might have. And always, as always, please give us comments, share the videos. If you have anything that when you try it, let us know. Let us know if you've used it in a different way. So we always are looking for new ideas.
Yeah.
Right?
Thanks.
All right, you guys, everybody stay well. Remember, cooking is a powerful health behavior. So get cooking. All right, I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.